In today's video, I'm going to be discussing some frameworks and strategies that you can implement today to make it, as I say here, impossible not to scale to multiple 8 figures. Of course, nothing is guaranteed. You got to put in the work, but I'm going to at least bring you through what I've seen work after working with over basically 100 plus e-commerce brands in the last 7 years. Just to get the proof out of the way, in case you are a new viewer, my name is Brando. I work with 7 and 8 figure brands. This is just one of our own clients. As you can see here, $34,000 in one single day. And this is just to show you that the type of data and the caliber of clients that we're typically used to working with, okay? Okay, so let's start with this little diagram. What I'm gonna do is kind of like compare a 7-figure versus an 8-figure infrastructure in terms of how they go about scaling and growing their brand. And I'm fortunate enough to actually speak to like hundreds, every single year, hundreds of brands every single month, or I guess throughout the year. And so I know exactly what they're doing and I can kind of compare the strategies, right? So this is what most 7-figure brands do. They have a collection, a suite of products, call them whatever you want. Could be also one singular product. And they choose a couple of different avatars. So they typically target maybe 1 or 2 avatars and they test 1 or 2 angles for each avatar. And then that's all they do in terms of like avatars and angles, okay? And so I'm going to talk about how these two components are actually extremely crucial to allow scale or gradually scaling to happen. And so these yellow things that you see here are iterations. And so I just put a couple lines because it's true that it's not that they do nothing, right? But they do, of course, several iterations to make the angles work and scale. At the end of the day, they are a 7-figure brand. So they're doing maybe 100K, 300, 500K a month. This is typically enough, okay? If you are good at doing creatives, right? And you iterate and you have a good avatar and a good angle, then typically this can work. I do have to say the major difference between 7 and 8 figures along, this infrastructure is that the 8-figure brand is a lot more systematic when it comes to like understanding why ads work, understanding why they don't work, having a repeatable process to find winners in a more like repeatable and consistent way throughout the months, right? That is of course a missing piece, which is creative foundation, creative team, everything. Now, but regardless of that, because it's a topic for another video, this is typically how 8-figure brands operate to get to, to $1 million a month or more. And so it's kind of like everything that we've seen over here, but on steroids, right? So first of all, they test way more avatars, and I'm going to talk about the importance of choosing the right avatar and how it can untap a huge level of scale, of extra scale that you can untap for your business, right? For your brand. And so this process is basically the same. Collection, suite of products could also be one product, but everything is distributed horizontally. And each avatar should be seen as kind of like a unique business, a bucket of extra cash flow, right? And so the other thing that they do a lot more, other than testing more avatars, right, is they test a lot more angles and they do a lot more iterations. So it's essentially like a volume game. And by the way, I'm not saying like to do this, you need to do like 50 ads a week. It's not even about the volume, it's about the intent, right? And crafting ads that are with a specific intent and that target angles that resonate with the avatar, right? And of course, targeting an avatar that has a big enough TAM, scaling opportunity, and is like perhaps a unique avatar, not something super saturated and broad, right? Which I'm gonna talk about in just a second. So as you can see here, major impact is just like more work, more research, more testing. Okay, and this is typically why to get to 8 figures, a team is required, right? It's very uncommon to have like a small team of like 1 editor, 1 creative strategist, maybe a graphic designer, like 2 or 3 people just get to 8 figures. Unless, I don't know, I've never personally seen it. It's typically a suite of like a collective team members that are specifically specialized in creatives and making them work and expanding and doing a bunch of research and kind of like creating this infrastructure over here. Now, of course, as you can see here, Avatar 1 makes 300K, Avatar 2 makes maybe 350, Avatar 3 makes almost 500. And so you get the point of how you can see this going to 1, 2, 3, 5, $10 million a month, right? So let's talk about kind of the strategy that we use overall that has really been working well for us in terms of like avatars and testing and pretty much the strategic process that we use. First of all, we have to understand that in order, to choose avatars, right? There needs to be like 3 rule of thumbs. First of all, you need a decent to large TAM. TAM is basically total addressable market. If the total addressable market for one avatar is like 50 million, right? Meaning that if you owned 100% of the market, you could, get 50 million. And by the way, it's very uncommon for somebody to get 100% of the market, right? If, as a rule of thumb, if we can get 1% of the market and be happy with the revenue that we're generating from that 1% of the total addressable market, then it's a good indication that it's a decent to a large size. Typically, 300, 500, $1 billion, right? That's typically what we want to aim for. And then, of course, as we start acquiring more customers and gaining leverage over our competitors, then we can afford to go over maybe the more competitive avatar, which is a bit more broad, that has like a TAM of like, $17 billion or whatever. But typically, it's way harder to go after like super, super broad segments at first, right? Especially if you are at 7 figures and not 8 figures yet. And so this is kind of this testing strategy that we use. Our initial testing, in fact, when we onboard clients, the first thing that we do is we take a look at what's working for them in terms of avatar. Let's just say if avatar number 1 is working for them, we keep and we resonate with that and we feel like it's a long-term fit, we keep going with it because it's working, obviously. But we spend, the rest of our time figuring out if we can find other more unique and untapped avatars, but most importantly, more than avatar, under like angles. For example, if they come to us and avatar number 3 is working, we want to find angles that we can untap into the market that are maybe a lot less saturated, because what tends to happen is that if you go after unique avatars and angles, your cost per acquisition typically tends to go down because of lower CPMs. Why do you have lower CPMs? Because it's less saturated. It's less of a red ocean. It's more of a blue ocean, and there's way less advertisers trying to pitch this avatar customer number 3. Okay, so the first thing that we do is we test avatars. And test around 6 different angles per avatar, 3 to 6 depending on the situation. And as I say over here, once you find the avatar and angle that resonates the most on the front end with creatives only, meaning we put all of our energies into doing intent-based creatives after doing a bunch of research, then you can move forward to personalizing the entire sales process, from ad to advertorial if you're doing it, to sales page, landing page, whatever you want, to offer. Actually naming convention, like changing based on your avatar and the angle, you change the name and the copy of the advertorial, the sales page, the offer, and of course the ads. This 9 times out of 10 equals very, very high conversion rate, because there's resonation and congruency. Congruency and resonation, meaning from ad to advertorial to SP to offer, there's a congruent message, right? And it's about the same thing to that one specific persona dealing with this one specific problem in a specific context and circumstance. You see how that's like, it makes sense? So this is super, super important. Let's talk quickly about, this is pretty much how it looks like in the ad account. Avatar 1, Avatar 2, Avatar 3. We like to basically test like 3 to 6 ad sets per avatar to make sure that it's proven. If we test an avatar customer and after 6 angles, we don't even see like a minimum level of engagement or kind of like metrics that tell us we're going towards the right direction, it's kind of like, hey, let's just move on and find something a bit more like better for our product so that we can enter the market in a unique way. So typically how it works is that we test the avatars. This should say avatar number 2 and avatar number 3. And if, let's just say, these 2 flop, but these avatar 2 goes well, and then within avatar number 2, out of 6 angles, we find angle 1 and angle 3 that resonates. Then after that, we go ahead and proceed with like personalizing the rest of the sales process. So this is pretty much how we do it, and it works. As I say here, in many cases, the problem is that your messaging is too broad. Your customers will see you as any other brand, as I said before. It's like too competitive, and your positioning in the marketplace is focusing and not specific to an avatar. Okay, it's confusing, sorry, and not specific to one avatar. As an example, if I'm selling skincare to white females in the United States, I'm gonna be compared to like brands that are, billion-dollar brands. I have nothing unique to my brand. And not only that, your sales process doesn't really, is not really customized and custom towards one specific persona that is dealing with one specific problem. And so not only you will receive higher CPMs because everybody's trying to get these customers because there's nothing unique about your positioning, but you're competing against like billion-dollar brands typically, right? And so I'll give you an example just to end it off here, an example between a good avatar and a bad avatar, okay? A bad avatar is targeting the US 50-year-old Bob that has back pain and he is as he's aging. Okay, so some people might think that targeting somebody who is in the U.S. who is 50 years old already within a age gap and has back pain is already like a pretty. Sorry, there's a full of mosquitoes here, and I gotta kill this one. Going back to the video, is like what I was saying is that people may think that this is like already specific. Okay, so let's go after a great avatar with the same type of persona, just so you understand what is good and what is bad. First of all, great avatar is a 50-year-old, white-collar job, finance, IT, legal operations, works 10 to 12 hours a day, mostly sitting. Okay, married, has a couple of kids, makes good money, primary provider in the family, and lives in the suburbs or a commuter town. Okay, so all this information is critical to cater a messaging so that it resonates with this Bob, 50-year-old Bob. Okay, this has no research. It's just like a random avatar that has. It's not even like an avatar. It's just like a person that is. It's too broad. It's too general. Okay, pain points. Constant lower back and hip pain from prolonged sitting. This is going to be the major motive behind the back pain. It's not like just back pain. There's a motive behind the back pain. If I have an ad just saying solve your back pain, or an ad that says are you dealing with back pain because you're sitting 12 hours on a desk, which are you going to resonate the most with if you're sitting 12 hours on a desk, right? Next, stiffness with stand-up, feels 30 years older, right? These are like hooks. Do you feel 30 years older as soon as you stand up from your work desk? I don't know. An example. Can't play actively with his kids after work. This could be a whole like angle. This is an angle. This is an example of like avatar and also choosing angles, right? That's why you need to do deep research. An angle could be, do you feel like tired of feeling like you're 30 years older, right? Or do you feel tired of like not being able to like be a dad and actually play with your kids until you can and actually can't because you're too old, right? But you can't now because you have back pain. You get the point. These are all different angles, and this is basically, where you test these angles, right? Or these angles over here. You get the point. Moving forward, wakes up tired and unrefreshed. Feels trapped in his job, hates this sedentary lifestyle but needs the paycheck. Because the job pays well. Frustrated by short-term relief solutions like heat pads, painkillers, basically solutions that are not long-term. Fear of long-term mobility decline or surgery. These are all triggers and angles that we can use upon one specific persona. Emotional struggles, let's talk about that, right? If you understand what people think, what do they believe in, right? What is their emotional and contextual state, and what do they aspire, then you pretty much have them, right? Because you know everything about them. So here is an emotional struggles example. Guilt for not being active or present with kids, embarrassment when he groans or limps around the house, feels like his body is aging faster than his mind, right? Quite fear of becoming that guy who's always in pain and worries that his health is slipping out of his control, right? Desires, wake up pain-free and rested. This is what he wants. Feels energized and mobile at the end of the workday. Play catch or wrestle with his kids, regain a sense of physical confidence, right? Always great. Another example of an angle. Avoid expensive or invasive medical treatments. Find a solution that fits into his already packed routine, right? Which is great. As busy, right? For example, if you're selling a solution that is maybe just it's not bearable within their work day, maybe they are not even going to consider it, right? Feel young and capable again, and then aspirations. Be a physically present and engaged dad. Reverse the decline. Feel 40 again, not 60. Age graceful and maintained independence, and shows the kids that growing older, strong, looks good. This is also an angle. Are you tired of showing up for your kids in the wrong way? Like, this is a whole other angle, right? Stay productive. Be remembered as a healthy, active, present father and partner. Another angle, maybe that I did maybe talk about it briefly, is like sleep, right? You can basically create from one problem a snowball effect of problems. Because you have back pain, you can't sleep. Because you can't sleep, you're not a good dad. You don't show up for work. You actually show up for work, but not in the best capable ability. Maybe your salary decreases because you're not as energized, as productive, and you have back pain, and you're basically not showing up, and so they could fire you. So just because of back pain, your life could be ruined, right? Not saying this, maybe this shouldn't be your marketing message, is too exaggerated. Your Facebook ads would probably be banned, but this is what they should think in their mind. Okay, this is an example. Hopefully you got the point. Let me know if you have any questions about this video, but this is really, really important. If there's one key takeaway, try testing more avatars and angles, because you will untap opportunities like this and it's easier to scale. Okay, and number 2, have a strategic way to test the avatars with creative first. Once they're proven, go out and personalize the entire sales journey. And last but not least, understand the difference between good avatar and bad avatar. That is it for this video. If you are a brand doing at least $100,000 a month and you want to audit from us and explore the opportunity of scaling to the next level with us, then book in a call. You will probably speak to me or one of my team members, and then we will do like an audit on the call. On a second note, I am giving away this sheet, which I always do in my other videos, which is a creative testing tracker sheet. You can get it. This is how we actually practically track ads. Every single time we do an ad test, we put it over here so that we can track, first of all, the break-even point, the creative concept, the marketing angle, the main emotion that we use, the avatar that we were targeting, the hook, the messaging, the copy, the creatives, everything. And we also then record the data so that we understand where the problem is, if there is a problem within the ad. Is it the hook? Is it the hold rate? Is it the engagement rate? Right, where it is. And then we can have learnings and next steps. And then we also, this is how we track win rate, right? In this case, it's 12%. But we track it by actively going in every couple of days. We have a person that does this within our organization and says, hey, this is a to be determined, this is a winner, this is a loser, this is a break even, right? And based on the results, you can create your win rate, which is a crucial number in ecom. That is it for this video. See you on the call maybe, and definitely see you in the next video, hopefully. Bye.